All right, so earlier this week in our staff prayer time, we were working through some excerpts from 1 John chapter 4, and I thought I would do the same thing with us today. So while we're reading these, I want you to be thinking about how it relates to your relationships, your friendships, and to those people who are closest to you. So I'm going to start with 1 John chapter 4. I'm going to read just a few verses, kind of excerpts from that passage, starting in verse 7. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. And now going down to 16. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in him. And then kind of rounding out the chapter in verse 19. We love because he first loved us. If anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, he is a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, cannot love God, whom he has not seen. So we know this passage is pretty familiar. It's a passage most of you have likely heard before. And I'm just hoping to bring a little bit of a new, maybe a fresh insight in how this works into our current lives in a very practical way. So this passage suggests that as we move towards people to offer Jesus' love, people, friends, relationships, those that are closest to us, we extend to them a friendship that is different than what the world has to be able to offer. Here's how that plays out in my life. So as a pastor, I often look at people, and I'm being very candid here, I often look at people and I wonder, well, how can they benefit the church? So I almost look at people naturally as a resource. I mean, that's one of the calls upon a pastor's life. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 12 says to pastors to equip people for acts of service or for the works of ministry. However, if we look at people first for how they can benefit us, we are not living out this section of Scripture and how we truly love others. When God's love is present in relationship, in friendship, we stop treating people as a means to an end. We lay aside any desire to get something. That's a quote from the Emotionally Healthy Relationships devotional. We affirm and we appreciate others' uniqueness. In fact, it helps us to appreciate others in the ways that they are different than us. And I think naturally, I can't speak for you, but for me, naturally, I surround myself with people who are like me. And I want to love as Jesus loved. For whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. So that means that there will be people in my life and around me who are different than me. So as we step into these next 8 or 9 weeks at Christ Church on Sunday mornings, we're preaching from Romans chapter 12. We're talking about personal renewal. I want to encourage you to lean into spiritual practices that draw you into a relationship with God. And it would not surprise me if that maybe during this summer or maybe these last 18 to 20 months that we have stepped away from some of those rhythms, and I want to encourage you to lean in and step into those. And here's why. That we want to re-engage and we want to engage. Because just a couple of verses later, in chapter 5 of 1 John, we read this. This is love for God, to obey his commands, and his commands are not burdensome. They're not heavy, they're not weighty, they're not too hard for us to carry. Meaning that the closer we are to God and his will for us, the more natural it is for us to love in relationships, and in friendships, and even with those who are different than us. I hope to see you soon. Have a great Friday.